I'm going to share with you the top 3 fitness mistakes that enduro racers make every single preseason that causes them to get the same results as they did in the last season with no progress, even when they put in more effort. So you can avoid these mistakes and kick ass on race day. So we're going to have a look here at some of the highlights from Sea to Sky that Enduro DKA have put together. So there's 3 main things that come up in preseason. The first thing that comes up in preseason is riders not starting early enough. So for most racing seasons, they'll be from, like, depending where you are in the world, January, February, March is when things will really kick off, and then things will start to wind down towards the end of the year around maybe October, probably at the latest. Then there's not too many big races after that. Most of the big ones are in the middle section of the year, those middle 3 or 4 months. And so the problem is what happens is riders will race throughout the year, and then they'll have time off towards the back end of the season. So when it comes to like October, November, December, when they start to have their last races, they'll take time off. So they start riding a lot less or not at all. They start training a lot less or not at all. They have a break up to like Christmas and New Year's. And then when January comes, or middle of January, the new calendar's out for the new year. That's when they start to get into riding again. Maybe they've got a new bike, they've got some new gear. They're all excited and enthusiastic and ready to rock and roll for the race season. The reason that this approach is a problem is because what happens is anytime that you're not training or not riding, you're not staying stagnant. A lot of riders think that if they take time off training, they take time off from fitness, then they can just pick up from where they left off. And that's not true. What happens is you actually go backwards. So the more time you take off riding, the slower you get, the worse your skills are. The more time you take off your fitness and strength work, the same thing. Your fitness and strength starts to deteriorate and drop back. And so what that means is as you're dropping back in the off season, like that November, December period, so that might be like, say, an 8-week period, that means it takes you then another 8 weeks at the start of next year to then get going again. So you spend 8 weeks going backwards, and then you spend 8 weeks trying to be able to go forwards just to get back to where you were. It's 4 months really of not making too much progress at all. We're going to have a look at some of the footage here. I'll just turn this volume down a little bit. But we've got some footage here from Sea to Sky. If we have a look at these guys, a lot of these guys that are riding here, like at the top side, will be riding all year, okay? They might be doing their bigger races throughout the year, but they're always working on their riding, they're always working on their training. They don't take 3 or 4 months off every year to do nothing and then go back because they know that their skills, their fitness will deteriorate and will drop backwards, and they're not going to be performing at their best for these big events. You notice a lot of these top guys are always at the top, okay? They stick at the top and they're always doing well, even though their skills are improving, even though everyone else is improving and getting faster, they're able to keep up with those demands. And that's because they're actually getting better year on year. They might still be winning races, but the pace of the entire field and the ability of the entire field is always leveling up and always improving every year. If you go back and have a look at like Enduro or motocross from 20 years ago, you'll see what I mean. Like everything is always getting better, faster, and improving, which means the riders have to be able to improve as well. So instead of when you do take those last few months off of the year and then you try and rebuild at the start of the next year, the problem is you feel shit going into the start of next season because you actually are not better than where you were the previous year. You've just taken all of this time off and then you've had to spend the start of the year rebuilding just to get back to where you were, which is not fun, especially if you want to perform and you want to be competitive and you want to do well on race day and you want to enter some big events, like you want to do this like Sea to Sky or go and do Think Desert Race or do Baja 1000 or Romaniacs or Hadar, whatever it is that you want to do. If you're rocking up with your body in the same spot that it was before and your skills in the same spot that it was the previous year, then you're going to find that if anything, you might be the same, but you might even be worse. If everyone else is improving and everyone else has made progress and you haven't, then you might find that the other guys are going to overtake you and be slightly ahead of where you are, and so you're not going to be able to keep up. So the way that you fix this is there should be no such thing as an off season. It should be just pre-season. It's like in season and pre-season, and they're the only 2 modes of training that you should be in, especially if you're doing big events like this where you've got like Sea to Sky. So let's have a look at what these guys are dealing with, right? So have a look at the bike here. It might be a 300, and then you've got the rider on top. If the rider's weighing 90 kilos and the bike's weighing 110 kilos, that's a total of 200 kilos that, say, like Wade Young here needs to wrestle around for a full race, right? And if you've seen pictures of him, especially with no shirt on, he's quite built. He's quite a strong guy. So to be able to do races like this, you need to be able to have a high level of strength, to wrestle the bike around, to be able to do hill climbs, to get in the positions that you need to go through rock gardens, to be able to go through the steeper sections and keep your body over the back. You need to be able to have that strength there. And so, especially for guys like Wade, they wouldn't be able to have that strength there if they took 3 or 4 months off the bike and 3 or 4 months off of training and just went on holidays, because all their strength would go backwards. They wouldn't be able to build and get stronger and keep up with the progression of racing every year to continue to be at the top. And yes, he's a professional level rider, spends a lot of time riding and racing and dedicates his life to it. You might not be doing that. However, that's even more of an important sign that you need to keep cracking through the off season and not take time off, because you've got 40 or 50 hours or 60 hours during the week where you have to do work or do something else that's not riding. These guys are riding and doing all of that. If anyone needs a break, these are the guys that need a break, because they're riding and training a lot more than what you are. So the way that you fix that is you don't have an off season. You do what these guys do and you keep training all the way through. As soon as you finish, you keep up your training. It might mean that you do maybe slightly less training. You might not be doing as many races or as much riding, and that's fine. You might have like a little bit of downtime, but that doesn't mean we're stopping. We're still dialing things in. We're still getting stronger. We're still getting fitter. We're still refining our skills. We're still getting better to make sure that we set ourselves up for the following season so that we're ready to go. So pre-season doesn't start in January. Pre-season starts in October, November the previous year, when the previous season finished. That's when we're starting to dial things in for the following year. When you do that, it feels amazing. And the reason that it feels amazing, okay, and you can have a similar feeling to what these guys get when they go out there and kick ass, is because you have this confidence that knowing that you're ready to rock and roll. When you go into race season knowing that you're ready to rock and roll, then that gives you the mental boost as well as the physical boost. And the biggest advantage that you have is during these last couple of months of the year. So I'm doing this in November 18 now. So like, let's say these next 2 months or the last 3 months of the year, that's when everyone dials things back. So while everyone's dialing things back and they're going backwards, if you can dial things in and keep improving and going forwards, there's kind of this fork in the road in October or November, where you've got some guys that are starting to slip backwards and go backwards. But if you can keep your foot on the gas and keep going, you go forwards. So when those other guys get to January and they start to make progress, then you've got an advantage. You've actually made up ground on them. That's very hard to do at any other point in the year. Because when everyone else is training, everyone else is riding, everyone else is getting to the races, everyone's progressing at a similar rate. Yes, there's better strategies and better ways of doing things, but the biggest advantage you've got is you dialing things in and them doing nothing, right? That's the biggest advantage that you've got all year. So take advantage of it. The second thing that comes up is, or second mistake that riders make in their pre-season, is they'll do lots of cardio. They'll see races like this, or they'll have a race that they're working towards that they want to do well with. It could be like Sea to Sky, could be Roof of Africa, could be like the 6-day International 6-day Enduro, could be like the Australian 4-day Enduro when they run it, could be Think Desert Race, whatever it is. Usually you have a ride or a race or a series that's the main focus for you. Okay, like these guys, this event is obviously a main focus for them throughout the year. Now, the thing that happens is riders will focus a lot on cardio, okay? And they'll try and build their endurance. They'll be like, hey, all right, I'm doing Sea to Sky, I'm riding 6 hours a day, or I'm doing Romaniacs, riding 6-8 hours a day, however long it is. I'm doing lots and lots of hours on the bike. I need to get my cardio better. And so what happens is they get to the start of the year, or they get to when they're going to do their training, and they start doing lots of cardio. They're cycling heaps, they're rowing heaps, they're running heaps, they're swimming, they're doing all sorts of stuff. They might be using a ski erg, using a rowing machine, whatever it is to be able to get their cardio up. They might be doing boot camp sessions, and it's all cardio, trying to build their endurance. And I get that, because I used to think the same way. It's like, all right, cool. If you're riding for 8 hours, you need to get your body good at moving for 8 hours. The thing that they miss though is the strength component, right? And that's like we just talked about, is these guys have to be strong, especially for hard enduro, for desert racing. You're throwing a bike around that's like 110 kilos. So if we look at this bike here, we've probably got, again, 300, right? 110 kilo bike, the rider might be 85, 90 kilos. You've got nearly 200 kilos that you need to wrestle around. That's without having your gear on. 200 kilos to wrestle around for a whole day of riding and do that multiple days in a row. That's a lot of weight to be wrestling around. And so the problem is when you just focus on cardio, you're only ever moving your body weight. So if you weigh 90 kilos and you're only ever moving 90 kilos with your swimming, with your running, with your rowing, with whatever else that you're doing, you're not going to have the strength that you need to wrestle the bike around. And that's a problem. Because when you can't wrestle the bike around, you can't wrestle this 110 kilo thing around, and it's quite heavy, it's on the heavier side for you rather than on the lighter side, you use a lot more energy than what you should be using. When you use a lot more energy than what you should be using, that becomes a problem for sections throughout the track. Because one tough section will take it out of you, and then you won't be able to perform at your best for the following sections. All that skill work you've done, all that technique stuff you've done kind of goes out the window because your body's just cooked. You can't even get into those positions in the first place. So how do you fix this? Focus on getting your strength dialed in, but making sure that, again, you're doing it in your pre-season. Your pre-season is starting in October, November, getting ready for the next season. Give yourself a good 4, 5, 6 months where you can really dial in your strength and really get strong without the interruptions of travel and racing and fixing bikes all the time. Okay, that's the best opportunity that you've got. You can build strength at any time throughout the year, but the best opportunity to get strong as fast as you possibly can is when you've got less traveling, less riding, less time in the shed, where you can really dial in your off-the-bike stuff. When you can do that, then again, you go in with a different level of confidence into these races. You go into these races like knowing that you're ready, feeling the difference on the bike, rather than going in and going, oh, I hope I'm fit and I hope I'm strong, ready to go for this season. You go in knowing that you're ready, knowing that you're actually better than where you were last year, not hoping you just got to where you were at the end of last year, despite putting in a whole heap of work. The third thing is riders will do too much training all at once. This is the third mistake. They take the time off at the end of the year. They get to the start of the year, so like let's say January, maybe February, depending on how late they want to get started. And they do all of this training all at once. They're like, shit, like it's this panic. Like I've got to get fit, I've got to get ready. I've told myself that I need to, give it 100% and I'm going to try harder this year and I'm going to get myself ready for a big event like Sea to Sky. And so what happens is, I'll just pause this here. What happens is they overtrain themselves and they start flogging the shit out of themselves trying to do too much. They take on too much, they bite off more than they can chew. They start training 4 or 5 times a week when they've been doing no training for the last few months, and they end up just running themselves into the ground. And they run themselves into the ground, not so much because they're doing too much training, they're just doing the wrong stuff. They're doing the wrong training, they're just throwing everything at it, there's no strategy, there's not much of a real plan, they're just getting at it, flogging themselves, and then when they get to race day, they're, number one, exhausted. Number two, the stuff they're doing is not working. And then number three, they can't keep up the work that they're doing because they're doing too much. They're biting off more than they can chew. They're trying to go from doing nothing to training 5 times a week for hours and hours and hours. And it just doesn't work like that. Okay, that's not human behavior. You need to be able to have, or first of all, that's a problem because you can't keep it up. The biggest thing that's going to help you with your training is being consistent with it. And the only way that you're able to be consistent with it is when you bite off an amount that you can chew and you can actually get through. So like for our riders, they train 3 times per week. The reason we do 3 times per week is because they can keep that up for all year, 3 times per week, okay? Rather than trying to start off with 5 sessions per week, realizing that it's unattainable, then doing 2 sessions 1 week, 3 sessions 1 week, no sessions 1 week, and it's all over the place. Pick an amount of training sessions that you can do every week consistently. If you can't do it consistently, then you're going to feel like shit on race day because you're not going to get the results from the training. Even if you have the best training strategy or nutrition strategy, if you're not able to do it consistently, you're not going to see the results from it. If you don't see the results from it on the bike, then you're probably going to find it hard to get motivated to keep at it because you're going to be just thinking up here, am I wasting my time going to the gym today? Am I wasting my training? Is this stuff I'm doing right now even actually helping me on the bike? So how do you fix that? Make sure you have, number one, an amount of training sessions that you commit to that you know that you can keep up all year, even when things get busy, when work gets busy, when you have to travel, okay, when you've got kids doing sports, all of those things, make sure that you can keep it up consistently and still have a bit of breathing room there to have your own time to chill out for a little bit. When you can do that, it's easier to be more consistent. The other thing I would say is have a training program that's designed for your racing, okay? Watch YouTube videos, like you can watch a heap of my YouTube videos and put something together yourself. We've got our Faster Laps program where we work with 30 or 40 riders at a time and help them to be able to get ready. But it's making sure that the stuff that you're doing, you have to actually be able to see the progress on the bike and be confident that it's the right stuff that you're doing. Because if you're not confident that it's the right stuff you're doing, or if you're not actually seeing the progress out on the bike, then when you go and train, you're not going to be that motivated to keep at it. Okay? Because who's going to be motivated to do something when it doesn't actually yield you the results that you're trying to get? It's a bit like following a diet and cutting off all of your favorite foods and not losing weight. And then still cutting off all your favorite foods and not losing weight. You're going to be like, well, why am I cutting off all my favorite foods to not lose weight? I'd rather just eat my favorite foods and not lose weight, right? We're happy to, as humans, we're happy to do things that are tough and challenging as long as we can see progress towards our goal and we can see that it's helping. So you might not particularly like gym training, and that's okay. But if you can see the results out on the bike and see the improvement, it makes it easier to get motivated to get in the gym because you know you're going to perform better on race day. When you can do that, you feel a shit ton better because you have the confidence going into race day that your body is ready. So you can go into big events like this, like Sea to Sky, tackle big hills like that, be able to do tough sections. We can have a look at some of the sections here. Be able to do tough sections like this and be confident that your body's ready. Not be like, oh, I just did this big hill climb and now I've cooked. Now I've got no energy and I can't go any further. Because that's what happens for a lot of riders. They'll do a tough section, like they might go through here and they go through, let's have a look. They might go through a hill climb like this, right? And it's quite tough, it's quite challenging. Their body's going to get in all sorts of weird positions. And then they go, oh shit, I'm cooked. And then that one section cooks them for the rest of the ride. So when you have that confidence going into race day, you can perform at your best, you can ride how you want to ride, you can enjoy your riding more, you can get better results, and then that motivates you again. It's like this positive cycle, positive loop where you motivate yourself to keep with the training and to keep going riding because you keep seeing the progress. When you don't see the progress, it sucks. It sucks to be putting work into something that doesn't actually help. If you would like to know how fit and how strong you need to be on the bike, you can grab a copy of my Enduro and Motocross fitness and strength benchmarks. You can grab a free copy of them. You want to be at a high level 3, low level 4 on that sheet. So you can grab a copy to that if you like. I'll put the link in the description. Otherwise, hopefully you enjoyed this video.